Everyone plans for the future, and everyone reacts differently if their future doesn't go according to plan. Some people give up, and some rise from the ashes. The most important thing is to never give up. After all, you never know how it will go tomorrow. An example of this is what our story today is about. It's about a woman who did not give up, who was able to overcome all difficulties and rise to the surface. After all, she was responsible not only for herself, but also for her children. Let's start from the beginning. Charlotte Sapwell from Victoria, Australia, has always considered her life to be successful. She had a wonderful, loving husband, 2 sons, and a comfortable home. What else does a woman need to be happy? She was already making plans for her happy old age when unexpected troubles appeared in her life. It all started with the fact that her husband began to work late more and more often. At first, Charlotte hoped he just had a lot of work to do. But later, she began to notice that her husband became really cold towards her and devoted less and less time to her and their children. Charlotte began to have real doubts, and soon she realized that her intuition was correct. It turned out that her husband was having an affair, and when Charlotte decided to confront him about it, she hoped that her husband would make excuses and eventually ask for forgiveness, and everything would return to her happy life. She was even ready to forgive his betrayal. But everything turned out much differently. Charlotte's husband simply kicked her out of the house, along with their 2 children. One can only imagine how hard it was for the poor woman. She had to work odd jobs, devote time to her children, and also manage the household. Now they lived in a small rental apartment, which had barely enough space for her and the children, but it cost a lot, $1,500 every month. There was no help from her husband. The money she made from odd jobs was barely enough to buy food and clothes for her and her sons. Then Charlotte decided that something urgently needed to be done. She went to the bank to inquire about a mortgage for a new home, but the loan amount was so small and the interest on it was so high that Charlotte knew she could not pay it monthly. Then Charlotte's grandfather intervened. The elderly man was very worried about his granddaughter and her plight, but he could not shelter them at his home. His house was so small that there was hardly enough room for even himself. But he already knew how he could help Charlotte and her kids. By that time, he had accumulated some savings. The amount was small, only $10,000, but for Charlotte it could help. Having received this money, the woman thought for a long time how to use it wisely. It was clearly not enough to buy a new home. Spending it all on rental housing was simply putting off the idea of permanent housing. Then a crazy thought was born in Charlotte's head, which she hastened to share with her grandfather. Behind his house was a small plot, too small to build a standard house, but Charlotte came up with a non-standard solution to this issue. She asked her grandfather's permission to build a small house in his backyard according to her own design. Since she did not have money for a full-fledged construction, she decided to do most of the work by herself. When her ex-husband and his new girlfriend found out about this venture, they laughed at the poor woman. They could not believe that she had decided to build her own house by herself and in such a small area. But Charlotte was determined that she could handle it. Of course, Charlotte's grandfather gave his consent, and after signing all the necessary documents, the work started. As Charlotte herself later admitted, until that moment she had never even held a hammer in her hands and knew nothing about construction. But she stubbornly studied videos on YouTube, read a lot of literature on the topic, and when she gained enough knowledge, she got to work. Charlotte's grandfather helped as much as he could. The kids helped too. They were very proud of their mother that, in spite of everything, she found the strength to build a real house for them, albeit a small one. Charlotte had nowhere to live with her children, so as soon as the walls and the roof over their heads were ready, they immediately moved into their tiny house. There was still no water or electricity, but the main thing was that they were together in their own home. They lived in it and continued building in all their free time. Finally, the house was ready. The woman even herself carried out a water supply system, sewer, and electricity in it. Of course, before that, she didn't know how to do anything, but she managed to learn and did it. The $10,000 her grandfather gave her was only enough to buy building materials, so Charlotte decided to sell all the old furniture she had. It was too big for the new little house anyway, and with the proceeds, she arranged comfort in the house. As a result, Charlotte got a house consisting of 3 rooms. One room was the bedroom for her sons, the other was a bathroom, and the third one combined Charlotte's bedroom, the kitchen, the hallway, and the living room. There was so little space that the woman had to look for non-standard solutions for placing her belongings. So for example, in the kitchen area, instead of the usual hanging cabinets, Charlotte placed cute hanging baskets. Yes, she was not used to such a small space. When they lived with her husband, she had a huge bedroom with a large bed, but now the woman huddled on a small sofa in the half dining room, half living area. But this did not upset her at all. On the contrary, she was glad that she could be closer to her sons. The boys also loved their home very much. First of all, they had taken an active part in its construction, and secondly, it came out very nice and cozy. They really liked the way their mother arranged everything in it. They liked their room, and they were also glad that despite the fact that the house was very small, they were closer to their mother and could spend more time together. Charlotte did not stop at the construction of her house. She was so fascinated by construction that she made a children's ice cream stand with her own hands, which they installed at the entrance. Now the boys could earn their own money. After that, Charlotte built another small house, which she put up for sale. By her example, the woman shows other single mothers that there is no need to despair. Even if they were left on the street without a livelihood and without a roof over their heads, this is no reason to shed tears and complain about fate. You need to get a hold of yourself, perhaps learn a new profession, as Charlotte herself did, and move forward towards the intended goal. It is not hard at all if you make some effort. The main thing is that your children are close and everyone is alive and well.